Okay, so today we're going to do a video where we look at moving average crosses. So we've already talked about what is a moving average. So when a symbol crosses the moving average, we can look at it from a point of view if we're doing an intraday. The moving average might be a 20-minute moving average, or if we're doing multi-day, it might be a 20-day moving average, or it might be more. You might do 40 days or 40 minutes or 20 periods of 5 minutes. It's entirely up to you. We're going to keep it nice and simple to start with. We're going to look at daily bars, and we're just going to do a single symbol. So I've already prepared a script. Is symbol qualified is just saying symbol equals GE, and then in onStart we're going to grab some bars from the history. So we're doing md.bar.daily start -20, and we just want the close price from there. Then we're going to work out what the moving average is for those 20 bars. So the moving average is the sum of the daily bars divided by the number of bars that we have, the length of that returned list. Then we've also got another value of yesterday's high. So we're going to grab from md bar daily back 1 point, move the pointer back 1 place, and then get the high price. So that's yesterday's high. Then we're going to print out yesterday's high and the 20-day moving average. And if yesterday's high is above the 20-day moving average, then we will place an order for a market order, initialize, and 100 shares. And then we'll just print out entering 100 shares of GE. So let's see how this does. We're going to save that, and we're going to do a new test and do a couple of days, jump over to the results, and see how we do. So as you can see, we've entered a position on both of these days. We didn't actually put in any exits, so it's giving us the final price at the end of the day. And so why did it enter on both days? Well, we are not checking to see if it's crossed. We're simply checking to see if it's higher than. So on these 2 days for this symbol, it was higher than the 20-day average. It was moving up rapidly. So let's make something a little more complicated now. We're going to jump to another script that I've created here, and we'll go through this step by step. I've commented out, if you use a hash at the beginning of the line, that comments out that code, so that code will not be run. But it's a good way of keeping code around that you may use or reuse or switch in and switch out. So we'll go through this code step by step as it stands, and then we'll make some changes to it as we go. So this time we're just going to trade SPY. And in onStart, we're going to set something up called status. So again, we use self because self is transferred between each of the calls, so we keep that variable around. Normally, if you don't use a self in front, if we just called it status equals 0, it will only exist in this particular function, and once the function ends, it will be destroyed. So we use self to retain it, and we're going to set it to 0. We're going to do the same thing here with the daily bars. We're going to get 20 bars of close prices. Now we're going to do something a little different here. We're going to look at the length of the bars to make sure that they're greater than 0 before we do this calculation. Because if you can recall from your school maths, if the length, if we got nothing back, if we were doing a lot of symbols and we got nothing back, then we will get a divide by 0. You can't divide anything by 0. It's infinity. So we would get an error there. So what we do is we say if the length is greater than 0, then do the calculation. Otherwise, else, just set it to 9,999, and I'll explain why I chose a high number on this occasion. So we'll just move on from there. Yesterday's high equals bar daily, so that's the same as we did before, and we're going to print the 2 of them out. And if yesterday's high is greater than the 20-day moving average, we're going to buy, but we're going to do an ARCA market on open buy, ARCA MOO buy. Now this algorithm, you can get the details of these from the documentation, and some of them have plain English names, which makes it a little easier to read them. Our intent is init, and our order quantity is 100. So ARCA market on open buy, that's simply saying that it's an ARCA based order and you're wanting to get in at the opening auction. So whatever the opening price is, you want to get in at that price. And most of the time you will be filled at that price. And a lot of multi-day models use opening price and closing price because it's very consistent. It's very easy to backtest for. It's very easy to look at the history for, because on any daily bar, the opening price and the closing price would have been the prices that you were filled at. We're then going to set our self status to 1. Okay, and what we're basically saying is we are in a position, and then we're going to print. We're going to use this service time to string again, and we're going to grab the current timestamp and print that out, and then comma entering, comma and self.symbol. So I'm going to print out the name and symbol. In this case, it's just going to be SPY for now. Otherwise, we're going to set the status to 2, which means that we're not going to do anything else. We're finished. We're not going to take any more action. And you'll see why that becomes important. This is called a state machine, and it just helps us to keep track of our model. So the next thing we're going to do is every minute bar. So that was on the start of the model. So it's if we start our model before the open, then we will be able to place this market on open order. You have to place it before, it depends on the exchange, but you have to place it before at least 9:25 in the morning. So you maybe want to start your model 10-15 minutes before the open. Next thing we're going to do is an on minute bar. So every time a new minute bar is created, this piece of code is going to run. And we're going to say if the status equals 1, in other words, if we're in a position, we place an order and set the status to 1. And the timestamp is greater than, and we're going to use another service function here where we convert some normal values into the internal time structure that the system uses. So we're using 12:30. So if the time is after 12:30, then we're going to exit our position. We're going to sell. And our status then we're going to set to 2, which means that we're done. And then we're going to print exiting. Now, if we didn't set our status to 2, what would happen? Well, on the next minute bar, it would come through on SPY and it would say status is still equal to 1. I'll send another sell order to exit, and it would fail because we've already exited. We're not in a position. So this just keeps track of things for us. Okay, so let's run this back test. And the only thing to be careful of here is we're going to run it over a couple of days, and we're going to set custom time. And I'm going to start at 9:10 and end at 4:20. 4:20 doesn't really matter, but the 9:10, just getting it started in plenty of time before the open. If you look at the market data as it comes in, there's virtually nothing up to about 9:20, 9:25. Then it starts to ramp up, and then at 9:30, it's an enormous amount of trades, and then it starts to taper off towards 10 o'clock, and then through the middle of the day, it's quiet, and then it builds back up again to the close, and then a little bit after the close. So let's submit this, and we'll see what this looks like. The final, collapse this. Okay, so it's finished running, and we can see on these 2 days, one day we made $82, next day, sorry, lost $82, next day made $69. Now, this isn't really a moving average cross model. It's if we look at the script again, we can see that all we're actually saying is, was yesterday's high higher than the 20-day moving average? So all that's really telling us about this particular backtest is for this period of time, on both days, we were above the moving average. So obviously we're in an upward movement. And if you think back, early 2017, a new president, the market was in an upsurge. So it's not surprising that SPY was above its 20-period moving day average. Another interesting thing to look at here is we can see we've got these spark lines. We have a red one here. This signifies this was a losing day, and a green one signifying a winning day. We can also read a number of other things into here. You can see that initially we have nothing, no P&L, and then suddenly we have a loss, and initially no P&L and suddenly a loss. So this P&L isn't tracking real time what your profit is. It's only when you exit a position that it registers the profit. And so looking at this, and this is a whole day, we can infer from this spark line that we entered at the open and we exited somewhere around the middle of the day, and we know we exited at 12:30. And the same for the capital used. We started using no capital, then we got in, and then we got back out again. The trade Kelly win, on the losing day, we had one trade and we lost, so it's 0%. And on the winning day, we had one trade and it won, so it's 100%. And the net edge per share is 35 cents per share and 41 cents per share. So that's taking into account both trades. We only traded 100 shares, but we traded 100 shares in and back out again. So it's taking that into account. So it's basically half of 69 and half of 82. Let's go back to the script. Let's change this from just being SPY to, we've done this before. This is the fetch for the S&P 500 symbols, and we're going to return SPY or a symbol that's in the S&P 500. Okay. Now, if we keep printing high in yesterday's high, we didn't look at that. Let's go over to the results tab and click on one of these days and select the console, and you can see it printed 225.83, and 224.57. So our yesterday's high was higher than our moving average. And then 8.58 we were entering SPY, and then we exited SPY. We're going to say that we do want the S&P 500 symbols. And what I want to do is I want to demonstrate this problem that you may sometimes get. And we won't necessarily get it with this test, but we'll give it a go. We'll run a few days. So all I'm doing is taking out that if statement and just doing the bar divide. So we're going to do it on all 500 symbols in the S&P 500. So there should be no day where we don't have any bars for an S&P 500 symbol. We're going to comment this out, and we're just going to do a return capital T true. Okay, now you can just put a 1 there if you want. 1 equals true and 0 equals false if that's easier for you. But capital T U-R-E is equivalent to a 1. Okay, so let's see what this does. Now we're going to do all symbols, and we'll just do a single day. Won't tax the system too hard. And let's submit that and jump to the results and select up here in the top left or down here the most recent test that we're running, and we will see how this one comes out. And as you can see, we've got a failed result, so let's click on that. In the console you can see we forgot to take out the print statement, so we're going to have a lot of print statements. We've got entering A, entering AADI, AAMC, AAME, so it's going through them in alphabetical order, but then it fails here, and it fails with a 0 division error, integer division or modulo by 0. So, and it shows us the line that it failed on. So if we think about it sensibly, this was 0. The length of the daily bars was 0. So let's go back and let's get rid of that line, and let's get rid of the commenting out on those lines. And let's try with just some S&P 500 symbols for the 1st of January. So we'll submit that. We'll go to the back test. We'll delete that failed back test, choose the new one, and we'll wait for this one to finish. Okay, so we've finished, and on this one day we lost $10,000. And you can see obviously the gross P&L works in the same way. These aren't going to change for this type of model in and out, but nothing failed. All of the symbols are there as we would have expected with the S&P 500. So let's go back and let's think about, we'll put the if statement back in again. We'll tab that back in. Now, because we were trying to find out if we were above the 20-day high, that's the reason why I put 999. If I'd set that to 0, then this would have said, well, yes, yesterday's high is greater than 0. So I wanted to make it a number that it couldn't possibly be higher than. Now, just out of interest, we got into 500 symbols and we lost $10,000. So this is the reason why I've got these 2 extra lines that I had commented out, where instead of buying on the morning, let's sell. And instead of selling at 12:30, let's buy to get ourselves out of the position. So effectively, we're flipping our position. So in theory, if we lost $10,000, if you're taking it very simply, and you go the opposite direction, you should make $10,000. Is that true or is it not? Well, let's find out. So new backtest and submit and results. And again, we're going to select our new job and collapse this down, and we'll wait for this backtest to finish. Okay, so the backtest finished, and we didn't make $10,000. We made $8,000, but not $10,000. So one might ask, why didn't we make an exact flip? Well, as with any transaction that you do, there is a transaction cost, and that's normally represented in the spread of a symbol. So simplest way to think about it is when you do foreign currency exchange, there's a buy price and a sell price. If you want to, if you're taking a trip to England and you're going to buy UK pounds, you could buy $1,000 worth of UK pounds and they will give you an exchange. If you then immediately gave them that money back and asked them to change it back into dollars, you don't get $1,000 back. They're making a profit. There's a gap between the bid and the ask. So this is why you don't get a perfectly balanced in and out. You would if we exited at the close. And if we entered at the open and exited at the close, you would have a perfectly balanced. If it went one way, flip it and you go the other way. But because we're doing that middle of the day trade, there's a potential for a difference in cost there. So let's do one more thing. We'll click on the day and we'll click on this trades tab and we will look at our most profitable trade was AZO at 1,067. So let's look at that other one when we went in the other direction. And we'll look at our worst trade, AZO 1,147. So the entry price is 797.81 and the entry price is 797.81. The exit price is 797.14, and on the other, the exit price is 786.34. So there's your difference. That was the spread at the point that we exited, which is quite a significant spread. Okay, so the next step I'm going to take with this moving average video is going to be an intermediate video. I'm going to enter in both directions. We're going to look for an actual cross rather than just above the moving average. And we're going to hold for multi-day. So we're going to have to do something that holds the position for each backtest. And we're going to have to do each backtest in order. So we're going to have to backtest a day, see what the results were, and then carry those positions forward into the next day, backtest the next day, see what we're still holding on to, and move on from there. You can jump onto that video if you wish, or you can continue. I'll do another slightly different video that is more for the beginners if you want to stay on the beginner level. But at some point, you should make a move up to the intermediate once you're used to the system. But by all means, go through all of the beginners ones first. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.